Yeah, we're up in north and Ireland right now, so we're right in our midpoint. And it's pretty dry, really. Better than the last years, but it.
Some what all the better. Last.
Sam, how are you?
Call meeting order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. First on our agenda is Matt from Porter Starke Services. Hi. Morning, is right here? Yeah.
I reached out with your blessing from your last meeting.
Right.
To try to get that conduit more, and I forwarded you guys an attachment. I think he's got a couple of more handouts, but I think we're definitely right for more partnership.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to get with. What's Todd Willis's role in the organization these days? I went through a leadership program with him years ago.
Yeah, his official title is Director of Community Engagement.
Okay,
So he's kind of out and about in a number of different capacities to promote
Okay.
programs and oversee some things.
Yeah.
Well, good. I don't have any kind of prepared speech. Mental health and addictions and healthcare is complex work. Just wanted to get a chance to say, hello to some of you might be new. To familiarize yourself with some of our new services. There's unfortunately, our field is riddled with acronyms. So like CCBHC may be something that's good to get to know because it's a treatment system infrastructure that the state is looking to move towards that would provide a lot of things that aren't currently provided, including some crisis care. So we're working on developing more mobile crisis where we would go to meet people where they're at. And hopefully that will divert people from inappropriate jail or inappropriate hospital admission. We're also going to develop a crisis center. That's going to be a place where law enforcement can take people. And there's examples in here, but the example that we hear a lot is somebody might be out making a ruckus at 2 a.m. Clearly they aren't maybe in their best state, but the police don't want to arrest them. So they can take them to a place like a crisis center and say, stay here and get help. I'm not going to arrest you. And most of the time, people will think staying with the crisis center and getting a little bit of help. Again, avoiding jail, avoiding hospital admissions is the key goal. The other thing I have brought with me, and I don't know if everybody has one, and I'd be happy to give you a few copies here. This is our county report. And we do send this out every year, I think both email and hard copies, but it just gives you an overview of some of the things that we do. This is actually a state required report. So all the things that are in there and described are part of our requirement for what we do, but it shows you how many people we serve, what kinds of things that we treat, what are the most common diagnoses, as well as ways that various staff are involved in things in the community, the different boards they serve on, or committees or programs. So, and this is just all for your general information, and I'd be glad to follow up individually or as a group later with anything if you have other things.
I also referenced that a grant that we were, kind of trying to put together really quickly, and I just thought in the future, if something happens fast, just having a better, a face with name and things like that, we can act a little faster. I mean, sometimes I don't know if Jack Rose is here, but I talked about all these things and shared also the information with Jack. But sometimes adding something to the jail, like a second person to do something, it takes a little bit longer because we need to know like how is it sustained after the grant cycle, you know, all those other kind of things. So I think just getting that communication line,
Yeah.
we definitely have needs here in Stark County. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we compete against sometimes are what they call, the shovel-ready projects. Somebody in a community is ready to go, and the state or the federal government might be the ultimate funder. But if you have something already identified, then you're kind of looking for the grant. Instead of what we often see is the need is identified by the state or by the federal government about here's the thing that we think should happen. And an example of that is, I don't know if you are aware, but just recently we received a $925,000 grant in Starke County to do supportive housing. Specifically, there's outreach to people with mental illness or who have been chronically homeless in order to establish them in supportive housing, which means that they have a permanent place and way to live. It helps pay for renovations. It's the first of its kind in what HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, normally focuses on urban communities. They were looking to expand this into rural. So we saw the opportunity. We had the staffing infrastructure. So that's something that's happening now that's hopefully going to be good. But that's an example of we're always looking for these opportunities. But if the individuals here locally see something, please do reach out and we'll work with you to try to find a way to get some things done.
I think both of our boards more recently have been a little shocked getting the numbers on homelessness, and I don't think we were aware that it was
As bad in this area.
Yeah, the rural homelessness, and that's why they did this, because it's more and more of a problem. So, but no, we're glad to get these things going. We've got some really great staff who are implementing these things. So we're excited.
So in your conversations, have you uncovered any new ideas as far as to how to best effectively use the earmarked portion of the opioid settlement?
Well, I think that was like the next step. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, one of the things that talking to the commissioners about was, you know, on one side, we obviously bought some things that help with, you know, on the penal side of, you know, of drug addiction, and, you know, and so it'd be nice to also impact it from, you know, the mental health side of it also.
Mhm.
And so I don't think we have any specific ideas yet, but matching funds or things like that might be perfect from that. You know, the next time something comes around with some significant grant that we couldn't normally get,
Yeah.
you know, that it's nice having some funds available.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess that's all. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be nice to keep in touch and.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't know if I can give you a card just to make sure you have my contact info. I know that David has got to get a hold of me, but just please feel free to reach out anytime. And if I don't know the answer, which is maybe likely, I'll find somebody who does.
I just kind of volunteered to support the commissioners a little bit as far as pushing some of that information, because, you know, it's in my mother, because I can see with that.
Yes. Yeah.
Experienced a lot of it myself in my life.
Your mother is my board of clerk services superstar, for sure. All right. Well, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
We have EMS department. Morning.
This is, I'm acting as, this is what they, gathered for us for the month of February. Of course, it's a small month.
Yeah.
That's
And this is from,
bad for some, actually.
this is from this.
It's in O'Hara, $519.82.
This is from the Acumed collection. That's the company they use for our accounts.
For merchants and medical, $87.33.
This is Aaron's, report for the month.
Nice.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the month of February, collections were increased. 55, again, we're just rounding numbers. 55,000 was collected from Acumed, and that also has Nancy's collections in there. So everything was 55,000 for the month. Operational cost was 101,000. Of course, we've seen that go up. And of course, holidays were in there. We had some ambulance repairs going on and some overtime like usual. So really nothing outrageous there. Ambulance stats, 142 requests for ambulances. Out of there, 51 of them were paramedic emergencies. Out of those, 7 were non-emergency, 142 that is. 53 were basic emergencies. 16 basic non-emergencies and 17 refusals. So I think we're about 10 calls down from the previous month to that month. And we did say it was a slow month. So that is picking back up as it warms up. We start running more. Over to the department hiring. We were able to hire 1 full-time paramedic, 1 part-time paramedic, and 2 full-time EMTs. Already this month, I have an interview with another EMT to hopefully come aboard. So we're looking good in that department. Over with ambulance, the fleet, our ambulance with the rear end that needed to be replaced is back on the road, running great, and it's back at its town station. The next couple of weeks, we'll be getting them ready for summer, making sure the air conditionings are working, the belts and everything's good. Just doing a random check for the hot air coming our way. And then let's see. I was contacted by Kenny Falsk, Knox Fire Department. They are interested in one of our trucks. We have a 2003 E350 diesel. If you drive past the station, it looks green sitting out there. That truck has been an issue for Starke County EMS. It has a 6.0 engine, 6.0 engine, I think it is. And some of you may recall, this is one of the worst engines they made. Right now, we don't use the truck. It has not been used for years. If we put it in service, we're looking at a lot of cost. The engine is blown. It's going to need I think it's been repaired 3 times. Dobson's have had it twice or maybe 3, and then we'll have to do something with the engine. Brake lines are rusted. It hasn't moved in 4 years. Transmission's unknown. Tires are going to need to be replaced. The bottom line is the truck is not fit for EMS opening at one's use. We can't just really trust it to be on the road. Mr. Klaus.
Yeah, why does Kenny want it?
Yeah, well, that's how we're gonna get to the, yeah, and he knows about this. So
Okay.
I warned him what he's getting into. Mr. Faust was interested in the truck and they were gonna repair it and make it into a dive rescue truck. They're gonna put up a dive team for Starke County. This will be beneficial for us because of our drownings, and on the police side for any type of evidence recovery if they should throw it in a body of water. So with your permission, I'd like to donate that truck to them, or however we'll do that. He understands that what he's getting gonna take some work to put it back up, and they have agreed to that. I guess he's talked to the mayor. They were okay with it. Your thoughts?
It's very interesting. It's been a while since we had well, I don't know how much of a dive team we had 30 years ago. But
Yeah, and currently
we had at least 2 guys that did dive operations and emergency services.
I think the only thing, I mean, if we donate it to them, then you change the money, try to sell it.
That's what I was gonna
I
say.
think it needs to come back to us.
Yeah.
Even if we sold it for scrap. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with
Yeah, we're just coming up with an agreement with that clause in it,
it,
and
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good thing.
And just looking at the dive team. I'm sorry.
Well, is it gonna be donated to Knox Fire or City of Knox?
However you want it donated to.
Say Knox Fire.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I understood it as. It's gonna be donated to the fire.
How tricky would that be to come up with a fund agreement that would
it's to a governmental unit or 501(c)(3), it's not a big deal. I just need to do a donative agreement because we still want to put terms and stipulations in there. Yeah, I just need to know because I'm sure there are fire associations of 501(c)(3), but Knox City is obviously a unit of government. So however you guys want to structure that, I don't know procedurally if it makes any difference. Probably to the city of Knox would be better. Okay.
Yeah, we can do whatever you guys want to do. I'm willing to go back and say, do it for the city of Knox. It'll be a lot easier to get it done.
I'll just look back at the statute. There's a statute that covers
Okay.
things like that. I'll just have to, I don't know. offhand.
Yeah, just drop me an email how you want to do
So
it.
just as long as we can put in that stipulation. If they don't use it for the stated purpose.
Or they change their mind and don't want it, you know, they don't say what they think and give it back.
Yeah, not a problem. The one thing nice about the dive team is currently, if we should need a dive team for a rescue, recovery, whatever, we're looking at Marshall County to respond if they still have one. I'm not familiar with that. The one water rescue I had many years ago in Bruce Lake, the DNR came out, but it took 45 minutes for the dive team to arrive. It was a ice water rescue, and of course he was hypothermic, so we had to get him out, but he lived. It's just the timing we had to wait. So this will really benefit the community.
Yeah, I think dive team's a good thing.
Yeah. And the final order of business for me is the Starke Pro Care ambulance maintenance agreement. We have what's known as a power load system in our ambulances. And with that, we have power ambulance cots. They are not the standard. They're made by Starke and they're patent. And to get them to repair, we have to go through Starke. Medic 3 has a bad load system on it. It's just a defect that no one knows why. We've had the repair guy down here a number of times. When we're looking at this, they're 4 years old, they're aged. I'd like to propose to sign a repair maintenance contract with Starke. This will cost us $9,000 a year for the next 3 years. It'll be a 3-year contract. However, if we call a Starke to repair something, like right now, I have an ambulance cot with a hydraulic leak. I thought, simple. I know a guy in Plymouth who'll do it for $250. Starke wants $6,000. So I talked with the Starke, talked to some other people, and they said, no, Starke's products are made different. It won't last. So unfortunately, we're going to have to go with them. What happens with this contract is for the next 3 years, all of our ambulance costs are covered. All of our Starke load systems are covered, and our Lucas devices are all covered. When we call them, they will come out and fix them at no cost to us. We will get free batteries with it, and the only thing that we would have to buy if needed was the mattress. And our sales rep knows where we can get mattresses through Costco at a discounted price. $9,000 a year for the next 3 years. However, I do have the funding in my budget. So I do have a line item for that. Just because it's a 3-year contract, I wanted to run it past you guys again for your permission. And if I use the money for this, I will not be short. As I'll be good for the year.
So you say this is a particular proprietary system.
Right.
Did you look into costs since it's broken? Did you look at the cost to switch it out to a more standard system that doesn't require going back to the original manufacturer for maintenance?
We can switch systems to another Furno. There's another company that makes them, it's Furno. That system costs at least $40,000.
Okay.
So to go new, and we have to buy their cots. Everything is patented right now. I looked at just getting rid of it, going back to the old days where we just pick things up. Then we have workman's comp issues. We should get a discount on our workman's comp for having these power loads. So in the long run, I've looked at a number of options, even trying to repair it through another person. And when you sit down and think about it, all of our equipment they were new and now they're aged. They need maintenance. They need repairs to be done on them. It's just in the past month, I think we've had Stryker down twice to fix a power load system. And it's being caused by this hydraulic leak from the.
That's what why I asked the question, because I mean, the numbers you just gave, a brand new one is only 10 grand more than the maintenance contract on the old one. And if the maintenance fees, if the new system doesn't break as often and costs less to repair when it does break, that's a potential cost savings over three years. And I'd like to dig into that a little more. I mean, because what I'm getting from what you just said is, this is a crap system, but we're gonna put 30 grand into it anyway.
Mhm.
That doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
The problem is that in my budget, I don't have 27,000.
No, but I mean,
9,000 is spread over
How
years.
much longer do we have? Because there is something we pay annually out of Cume Cap for what's on the rigs. How many more years we got paying on that? This should be close to the last year, I would think.
1 year for one of the agreements and about 3 years for the other agreement.
Okay,
So we pay, it's around 5,000 for one and 8,000 for other around there. So
Okay.
two right now. Those are for your. What are the, do you know?
it's some sort of
Yeah.
monitor system.
Yeah, the cardiac monitors,
Yeah,
and probably the Lucas devices are on. That's for the device only, and when it was purchased. And the warranty on the Lucas is going to expire in July. So we did get that.
how do we wind up making payments on something longer than the warranty lasts?
All right.
Oh. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to dump this kind of money and then purchase a new one.
Right.
For a little bit more.
And how much was the new one?
30 to 40,000.
Still always have an issue, it's-
Right.
Yeah, if I get a new one, eventually I'm gonna have to get a new one for every ambulance. So if we go 30, that's 90,000. Well, that'll be 120,000. It's a rough, I know, I looked at that too. I like the new ideal, but I need 4 of them. Then we have this one we can buy time with.
But this is,
Regardless, I'm gonna have to get that ambulance cot repaired because right now they're manually lifting it.
this could be one of those things, though, we make creative use of all the funds outside of his budget, be it Cume Cap or the settlement funds or potentially ARPA funds, depending on what we come up with as far as costs for the other projects we decided to move forward on.
How long have we had those? I didn't think we had the power cots very long.
Got them in 2020.
So 2020, so 3 years, they're junk.
That's why I'm really interested in looking at alternatives right now.
Yeah, or holding them like, what was the warranty on? A year probably, I guess.
If they had a warranty, and then it just came with a service agreement.
And the problem is, Stryker, you're stuck into their market.
Yeah.
That's the issue, and it's, as you know, prices are increased. We can't go outside because they're not adaptable, like $250 to have this fixed, but it's not guaranteed. Am I gonna spend $250, then turn around and have to do the 6,000? That's what I'm at. And I see your point too. I'd love to go new. Yeah, let's do it. But I don't know the county financing and
So we did the 9,000, that will give us 3 more years on.
and that will take care of the repairs, dusting, cleaning, the repairs. If this hydraulic issue happens again, it's paid for. Gives us a 3-year
I mean, I
And
guess
that won't go towards the hydraulic.
Yeah,
No,
every year.
that will pay the hydraulic.
That would pay the hydraulic off.
Yeah. Any maintenance issue is paid. Only thing is not paid is if the mattress is ripped, then we'll have to buy a new mattress because that's wear and tear.
That's what I'm saying, the one that needs fixed now, buying the warranty would cover that.
Yes,
And if we don't do it, it's gonna be 6,000.
Yeah.
I'm all for paying an extra 3, I would think, give us 3 more years. I mean, unless you guys are really thinking buying them.
I mean, I guess it's either do that or, for the time being, until we make a better plan of purchase new or whatever.
It costs 3 more to fix it,
At
and get it fixed, and then still
yeah,
get
at
3
least
more
3
years.
years we can come back to, I need them. Right now, I know your point, I see your point of view and I agree, it's just that,
If he fixes that one right now, it's gonna
right,
cost
because that
6.
one is. I try to buy time with that one and now it's causing more issues. And right now, they're manually lifting it, sorry. The
That's
power
not good.
system is causing more weight to lift.
Right.
It's 70 pounds
Yeah,
now.
that's gonna be an issue.
Yeah, and I wish I had a better solution. I looked at everything and tried.
I mean, I guess if we were to go through with this, would they be able to get it fixed right away
As of tomorrow,
compared
Yeah.
to purchasing a new one, which would take time?
Yeah, that's where, that process is.
and
months
it does
long.
cover our Lucas or CPR devices that we use. I need batteries for those, so that's on the agenda to buy. I'm just waiting to see if this contract goes through. With that device, we'll probably need more suction cups for it eventually at some time. And as you know, you're paying the net.
Have you given Justin a copy of the actual?
Yeah, he
contract
has it.
reviews?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for the terms and conditions.
If we cancel the contract before it ends, do we get a refund? Did you do that? Probably not.
Well, I don't know, there's several pages of terms and
Okay,
conditions
you're
here,
fine,
and
yeah.
when I look at that. When I got up this morning, I was trying to have it pull up the T and Cs, and I just haven't had a chance to go through it
Okay.
yet. It refers to a master agreement. Did you get a master agreement, Larry, with that? In the terms and conditions, it keeps talking about a master agreement, referring back to that.
I will have to look. I'll go through everything and see what I can find.
Speak out if you send it to me, it's that way.
Yeah, we can compare 'em. Yeah.
Would you say you were gonna pay for it?
It would come out of the ambulance equipment fund, which has 19,000 in it.
So you can afford to pay $9,000 a year?
Yeah,
What'd you say, Rachel, 9,000 a year?
yeah, for the next 3 years is what I would call it.
With this-
Yeah,
No, just 9,000.
Yeah, and I have in my ambulance equipment fund, I have 19,000.
And all the ambulances are equipped with this.
And in that ambulance equipment fund, I really don't have no plans on purchasing anything big. At 19,000. So basically, if I do this,
You might not have any plans. but
yeah, somebody else may, yeah,
Murphy might decide you have a use for it.
yeah. Um.
Depends on what kind of gotchas are in the fine print.
We can go on with it, vote on it, and just have one Justin decide.
Make a motion to approve pending review of the county attorney.
Yep.
Motion?
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Works out good, thank you. You guys have a good day.
You too.
We have Dan from Highway.
Good morning. Happy
Morning.
first day of spring, huh? We can sure get that.
Only if you can guarantee me every day from here until June feels spring-like.
I just won't guarantee you where it is.
Oh,
We were kind of lucky over the weekend. It snowed all around us. So good news is, we're fully staffed again. We had a new driver start today, Stephen Emery. Started today, so we're 17 full-time CDL drivers. One part-time CDL driver and 3 mechanics, so fully staffed. As far as the grants, we opened up the bid at the last meeting for 22-2. We're just waiting for notice to proceed. But I have met with Reeve Riley, and it sounds like somewhere like the 3rd week in May, they're gonna take care of that.
okay.
Then they're gonna move to Knox and do some streets for Knox, and then they're gonna move out to the airport. So we're hoping to get around 7,000 tons of grindings out of the airport. So that'll be good for us. We'll put that to use. As far as equipment goes, we just recently picked up a 2010 service truck. It's a 3/4 ton GMC with a utility bed, and it comes with a snowplow with it for $8,900. So we're gonna assign that to the mechanics. Amanda just informed me this morning that over the weekend, our gas server has gone down. It's a Microsoft XP, and it's been out of service since 2009. Or it's been out of date since 2009. So
Yeah,
at the current moment, Richard came out this morning and took our tower. And he's gonna try to rebuild the hard drive or save the hard drive.
yeah. Well, so long as it's not connected to the internet, it shouldn't be that big. Yeah, it's old, but it's not necessarily garbage.
So right now, we currently can't tell who's getting fuel and who's not.
Oh, that's a problem.
Between the police, EMS, the surveyor, the county highway truck.
That'll make a headache for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last time she said this happened, they put a box out there
I'm
and.
gonna say, can't you
with
go to a
little
box with
tickets.
the envelope or something?
Yeah, but if
Okay.
Right,
they're honest about
right,
it, you know.
right,
Well, there are our employees, but we should assume that, be honest.
right. And leave a note out there, at least write it down.
So
And the key fob system itself works to limit.
entryway and yeah.
Yeah.
So, Richard and Amanda was talking this morning. He said, you know, it may take up to a couple months to engineer a new software program. But Amanda's checking this morning on what an updated program was gonna cost. Better get something figured out.
Yeah,
You're always gonna have a fuel system out there,
Yeah.
and just see how much it is for an
Yeah.
updated program, so you can do that soon.
Yeah.
You have the money to pay for it, so.
Okay. Bridge number 7. They're gonna begin construction on that around April 4th. That is located on 1200 East between Highway 8 and 250 South. So, they're gonna start around April 4th. They should finish mid-September on that project. The gravel roads, so far this year, we put on 840 tons of crushed concrete. We used up everything we had in-house, so we're hauling more in last week and today. We're hoping to get around 1,500 tons total. That's what we got last year. So as far as road maintenance, we're sending out 2 teams every day to patch with the hot boxes. The local road and safety plan funding. I think last time we talked about it here, I had one quote that was like for 74,000. We've got a second
quote that came in at 34,500. So, I've talked with Dave and he's willing to fund it through ARPA.
Oh,
Well, actually, let me just preface that, I would support that, because it's infrastructure. Actually, we both boards, we've already talked about this. This is that same one we talked about before. The only problem is USI was like you said, like 74,000, and we weren't really happy about the quote. The council had asked for, another quote when we were made aware of this. But it would qualify under the infrastructure. I spent half a day with Dan going over this grant. It really looks good because it could address things like our top three things are deer hits, intersection accidents, and non-intersection accidents. And it could really address, help with some of that. But I mean, deer hits alone, I mean, to me, it seems like less people hunt in Starke County, so it seems like more people are hitting deers. And, that alone, I think could just, benefit a lot of people, just safety wise, and, not bashing their cars out, so. It has a lot of good stuff in there in that grant. Oh, sorry, and the other thing was, you can't get the grant unless you have the consultant, so you got your hands tied on that.
so this 30,000 and
34,500.
34,000, okay, 35 grand sounds a whole lot more palatable than 74.
This is from HWC Engineering, and they're the ones that in 2019, when they brought this program on board, they did the first three plans. So they have experience at doing this project. So that's who we're recommending. Because it's such a fairly new program.
So is that something you want to move on then right away or?
Well, it's about a 4-month process to come up with a plan. If we get it started now, we'll have time to apply this fall and get in the process. If we wait on it, we'll miss this year's funding.
What's the deadline?
I believe it's October.
Decision in the next meeting or?
Well, I would want Justin to review your proposed agreement before we.
Do you get that too?
I have a.
We could probably wait till our next meeting, so we can look at it.
It's 34,000, so it was less than that.
Yes.
Just, yeah, take a look at it, and then I think we've got enough time, we can take on at our next meeting.
At the next meeting, we can make a decision on it.
All right. Next is the NIPSCO fiber line. There was a web meeting there was a meeting on it a couple weeks ago.
Donnie, did you go to that? To the NIPSCO fiber line meeting
No, I didn't go to it, but
on Zoom?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically it's gonna run from the Schaefer plant in Jasper to Marshall County. So it's gonna go completely across Starke County. So it's like 32 total miles, and of 32 total miles, we're like 24. Okay, so they're gonna start April 13th and it's gonna go through the end of May. They're gonna work east to west. They promise there'll be no road closures. And they're gonna fly the cable on to the towers. So the helicopter will primarily start around 8:30 in the morning, running the cable.
And run for how many hours a day?
I did not ask that.
So they're starting late enough, it won't affect school buses and that.
Okay.
Yeah, the regular crew will start about 8, and then they'll get the helicopter in the air around 8:30. And
Most helicopters I know don't last more than 2.5 hours in the air anyway.
Right. Sound like they got it figured out pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
So as far as training goes, tomorrow, Melissa Knight's gonna be here. And the highway department's having their own meeting at noon. To talk about workplace harassment and sexual harassment. April 3rd and 4th, we're planning on sending 4 people over to Oregon, Illinois for Etmeyer training. That's our distributor truck. Back in November, when we lost Jeff, he was our main operator. So we do need to get some training on that piece of equipment. And last week we had 3 people that had attended road school. That included myself and Jessica, the asset manager, and then we took a crew leader down with us. So pretty interesting week down there, a lot to learn, a lot to take in. As far as the solar projects go, Mammoth has started planting trees on 650 south between 600 and 700 east. They're planting like 1 arborvitae versus 2 regular trees. I'm not sure what those trees are, if they're sycamores or maples or. And then also, we've been getting 700 south by the substation has been taking a pretty good beating. They have a big pile of dirt there that they've been moving around all over the project. They switched from they had a regular rock truck in there hauling the dirt. They switched it to a smaller version of the rock truck. It only hauls 5 yards. So hopefully that'll ease up on the road a little bit. Next year has been contacting us about more and more permits and right of ways. So they're getting a little serious and closer. Nothing from Hoosier. All we got.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Is Lisa?
Thanks for having us. Start off talking about the strategy. We kind of lost our leader, Stephen Eastwood was the Jasper County Economic Development Director. He has left that position and taken another job. So Nathan kind of picked up.
Happy to be here. Thank you, gentlemen, for letting me talk. It's my second commissioners meeting of the day so far. A little bit of quick background, get some of the context, and Mr. Wickert's actually part of that background. So back in, I want to say 2016, Jasper County asked their economic development director to find himself a new position. And they brought in a retired, semi-retired gentleman by the name of Dan Preston as an interim director. Dan came in, started rebuilding the organization's relationships both within the county and with neighboring communities, external organizations. That eventually brought on a replacement full-time director, Stephen Eastridge. So we had that going on, rebuilding that organization, onboarding Stephen, making the connections with us. And at the same time, we started to look at the fact that 4 of our counties, Starke, Pulaski, Newton, and Jasper, are sort of in this transitional area between Northwest Indiana and West Central Indiana. We're part of KRPC. We're also part of the Northwest Indiana Forum. KRPC is a very good organization, but it's a bit limited in resource and scope. Forum is very strong for its 3 northern counties, where the smallest one is bigger than our 4 counties combined. And so we found that there were some general, there's a general sense that maybe we weren't getting quite as much representation we needed at the regional level. So we started working together. Larry actually had the joy of spending like 6 hours in a car both ways with me when we took a field trip down to Kentucky to meet with some contacts Mr. Preston had there. We went and visited their tech schools, this, that, and so on. And we were looking at ways that we could work together on regional scale projects. Over the years, we've had turnover. Larry stepped down, Lisa came in. Dan left. Now, as Lisa said, Steven's leaving. But the one area where we kind of began putting this theory into practice was the development of this rural ag strategy, more formally the rural economic development model. We did a process. We brought in two of the other Kirksey counties who aren't part of the forum, White and Benton. And so our 6 counties worked with Kirksey. The Purdue Center for Regional Development received a grant from the Federal Economic Development Administration to implement this, or to develop it and start implementing it. Between the 6 counties, I'd say we did at least 70 to 80 interviews with the survey tool we developed with ag and ag related businesses in our communities. So for instance, I did it, everything from Maurice Lamer at the dairy at Monterey to Eden Valley Farms in Francisville, where they're doing the hydroponic lettuce leaf, trucker who specializes in ag trucking, the whole gamut from support to basic row crops to some unique agricultural ventures. Number of questions about how local state government can help them, issues they see both in the communities generally and in the ag component of the community. And that came to fruition finally in the end of last year with a 30-page report. I provided you a sort of brochure that our consultant put together, and then just the meat and potatoes of the final document, the 6-page detailed action steps. And it breaks it down into 4 general categories. The first being regional food systems, which is looking at, ways we can strengthen food sustainability, food diversity with our community. Why are we going to the grocery store and getting lettuce from 3,000 miles away when we know that we have the capability to grow all sorts of things here? Heck, I don't know about your family, but the Oregers were, growing vegetables on 400 South that my grandpa was driving to Chicago before, transportation technology made it easier for Southern farmers to get stuff to the Midwest faster. So looking at that, as we've seen those trends, as we've seen people getting into diversification, as we've looked at growth at farmers market, the farm to table thing, so this encompasses everything from building those relationships between farmers and grocery stores that we already have, whether it's directly or through some sort of centralized middleman, so that, every time 5 Star's running low on lettuce, they don't have to call 17 different lettuce farmers, that sort of thing, to providing training, maybe in the future, low interest loans or grants to people who want to get into diverse agriculture, that sort of thing. Looking at food supply chain, so bigger picture, whether it's going to trade shows, making those connections, assisting with the issues that some of our livestock farmers are seeing with getting inspectors timely so that they're able to get their product to slaughterhouses, get it to market faster, general entrepreneurship guidelines that might help with that regional food network, as well as this, looking into the ag workforce, partnering with CDL trainers, people who can do bilingual training for farm and ag operations that are hiring Spanish-speaking laborers. And then regulatory streamlining, where we want to bring all of us together, all of our counties, planning and building personnel together, and have conversation about what we can do as far as right to farm ordinance go in the counties that don't have them, changes that might make sense to individual county zoning ordinances, so that, especially in the case of a company that might have locations in multiple counties, like Roseacre, which is in at least 4 of our 6 counties, with obvious variations to meet the specific needs of the community, provide some degree of consistency. Roseacre isn't going to go build here and go 2 miles down the road and find that something is drastically different, more complicated or less complicated. So that's kind of the gist of it. Historically, economic development and agriculture haven't had a very strong connection, just because, in one instance, most of the incentive support for ag has come from state or federal level. While there are a lot of people working in agriculture, it's typically, unless you start getting into the processing facilities, like 4 or 5 here, 3 or 4 here, you don't have that critical density of labor of workforce in one plant where you have in manufacturing. So it's not that we don't care about our ag, don't recognize its importance, but it's always been difficult to be as of much service to our ag community as we can be to our manufacturing and our small business communities. This is sort of a step hoping to make those inroads and make ourselves available either to existing ag enterprises or the people who want to get into it and make that a little bit easier, bring more benefit to our communities and our region.
Yes, and so at our last meeting, I brought the right to farm. An example of an ordinance to you guys, then it needed to go to the planning commission. They said it could be June or July, but there were things they'd like me to come up with a couple other examples. They didn't feel like it was encompassing enough, apparently. So I will reach out to some of the other counties and see what is out there. Or go to the next planning commission and see what their questions are about it specifically, and then try to address those either in that particular ordinance or by reaching out to look at a couple other ones. So that came from that.
Unless you have any questions, that's all I've got for you. You're welcome to get a hold of me if you have any further. Like Lisa said, our sort of spearhead for this was Stephen over in Jasper County, and with his departure, I'm trying to step up and make sure that we keep the momentum going on this project until Stephen's replacement comes in, and also until Northwest Indiana Forum hires a new staff person. Part of whose responsibilities will be helping us to move this.
And we do have local farmers here in Starke County that want to be on board to help with whatever that might look like. So that's good to know.
That should help it go better, I was saying, having the local farmers
Definitely.
involved with it.
Yes, we originally had like a group, when we started this, of local farmers, that met once. And then they kind of,
Right.
It's stuff when we're in offices and they're in traffic.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're gonna kind of look at that again, like local committees to kind of keep things in motion.
Yeah, like you say, find out a good time to have the meeting, call Charlie and say, tractor time or not.
Well, the ag teacher at Knox was involved and he is very interested in being part of it.
Charlie was supposed to be, I could ride my bike down.
Right.
Charlie,
Yep.
too lazy to do that. I can't do it, but I could. Thank you. That's all I've got. for you.
And I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. A couple other things real quick. So our lead track in the Knox Industrial Park is currently only being used by two companies, Knox Fertilizer and Reagent Chemical. About 5 years ago, the rate plan was restructured. Right now, we're in the second year of a 3-year scope of work, which is about a little over $300,000 of work that will have to be done to that lead track probably every 15-20 years. Well, at $10 a rail car, that is just earmarked for future maintenance of that lead track. It'll be 50 years before we have that kind of money available. Because I have the numbers. So Knox Fertilizer had 448 cars in 22, Reagent had 460. So those times $10 a rail car doesn't get you too much into this fund that we're going to need to build up. So what they did was they said, okay, the $10 per car goes directly for that. Well, there's a NIPSCO bill, there's an REMC bill, there's monthly inspections, there's a whole lot of other regular maintenance that happens on that lead track every day, to the tune of $30,672.22. And then, so what we do is we do a separate billing for that, for the regular costs, which ends up costing each company, well, this past year, almost $15,000 a company. So that, back in the day, we had a single rate, $51, covered everything. We didn't have to separate bill them. So what we did was Rachel suggested reach out to Baker Tilly. Baker Tilly did put a proposal together. The problem with this is this could cost up to $12,000 for Baker Tilly to do a study, which ultimately would be paid for by these two companies, which I don't think is, are they going to want another $12,000 on top of their, regular $30,000 that they pay for that sort of thing. So what I'd like to do is talk to each of the companies, show them this proposal. Unless there's another funding source that can be used to pay the Baker Tilly for the Baker Tilly study.
I'd suggest talking to the companies,
Yeah.
but I believe the companies were involved when we lowered that.
They were
Bonnie.
involved, absolutely, and we can, I mean, you know, we can kind of figure it ourselves probably and come up with a number.
Right,
I just am not real excited about doing $10 per rail car for this and then doing a separate building for everything else. Why don't we go back to what we did with some kind of rate that's going to cover all of these expenses? To me, it's cleaner doing it that way. But again, I'm not sure that I want anybody to sign this yet until I talk to Knox Fertilizer and to Reagent to say, if we do this,
and if we don't do it, we'll have to do it ourselves and get
yes,
the
we'll
rate
just-
back up there. I mean.
yeah, it's gonna have to go
No.
back up
And
because,
this is the sort of thing that should be self-funded. It shouldn't require any additional injection of funds
Totally.
from the county.
right, exactly. So my big push right now is we've got to get somebody into the 51 acres in the Knox Industrial Park
Mhm.
that will use the rail. I met with the Hicks brothers. They have said for the past 15 years that they were gonna use the lead track.
Right,
So far, that has not happened. And it would be fantastic if they did. But whenever we get into that 51 acres, I'm really, every time, and I sent out 3 projects last week that came through from the IEDC that needed rail and needed acreage. And that's the sort of thing that I really want to try and get into that 51 acres as another rail user. Or at least get JW Hicks on board, because Toll used it, but not very much. I mean, maybe 12 to 15 cars a year. So, that's what I'd like to do. I'd kind of like to hold off, talk to the companies to say, you know, do you guys want to just figure this out on our own? Or otherwise, it will cost them, I guess, whatever the study costs. So that's how I'd like to handle that, if you guys are good with that.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Okay. Quick updates, having a second meeting today around hemp production and the products that can be made with it. Everything from graphite, graphene, which can make solar panels, to hempcrete, which is like concrete that they're actually making into making homes out of, to all kinds of products. So there's a farmer in Starke County and around Monterey who is a hemp farmer. But what they would like to do is provide seed to farmers who are interested in growing hemp. They're looking at bringing out a piece of equipment. It's called a decorticator that takes the plant apart, separates the top from the woody pieces at the bottom. And each of those things can make different things. So got a meeting with Purdue today at 1 to talk more about that. They were here last week. And I mean, they're really raring to go on this. The problem is, and there's lots of money for this through the federal government, but they want us to be the Economic Development Foundation to be basically the grant to administrator. Well, they're talking like hundreds of millions of dollars. And that I 2 people in an office like ours with everything else going on will be very, very difficult.
If they want your assistance in there, I hope there's a cutout so that you can use part of the grant to fund the staff you need to administer.
Well,
if you choose
absolutely,
to.
and that's what I said, because, well, I mean, quite frankly, we were administrator on the childcare grant. We applied for $350,000. Our auditor said, our CPA auditor that comes in once a year said, you don't have the assets sitting here. If somebody defaults on this, then you guys are the ones who will. So, if he's talking hundreds of millions of dollars, that to me is not feasible for our office. I mean, if we can do some things to make that work, that's fine. But we certainly don't have the assets sitting aside to cover something if there was a default somewhere. So looking into that, North Judson ribbon cutting, we have a ribbon cutting Saturday on 2 duplexes near the town park that Kurt Verhagen has built. Those are already rented. He will be starting a second housing project right downtown. I believe he's building 4 new townhomes right by the library downtown. So that will be starting up. We expect to be part of a hamlet housing, groundbreaking soon for a project over there. I believe it's four homes to start. And I know he's built a couple other ones over there. Our board will be doing a half-day, training on April 5th, which will be great. It's our strategic planning / education of our board. So hopefully that will be, a good day for the board to learn a lot of things. Our small machine shop that I talked about a year ago, they're ready to start building, working with the city of Knox. They're on 2 acres in the Knox Industrial Park, right along 300 north of the lead track. They do expect to have 5 employees in place when they are up and going. Like I said, we continue to market 51 acres. I actually did submit the Cisco site last week for a couple of things that came in via the IEDC. Don't know where things are completely with that, so I'm gonna just keep, if things sound like, suitable for that location, I'll just keep doing that. Our broadband initiative, working on that. With our half-day training, we're going to do like a broadband panel, hopefully get RAMC in there, Surf Broadband, somebody from the what's it called, broadband office from the state, to be a panel. But I think that's one of the things we really have to move on, because even though most people have decent internet, there's a lot of people in Starke County that do not.
Well, and it's been, we've had this broadband ready designation for a while now. It's time to do
Yes.
something productive with it.
So we're moving towards that. That's part of our strategic planning. Companies, huge companies, why would they come here if they aren't going to have good internet service and that sort of thing? So we're going to keep moving on that. We have a spring job fair April 18th, partnering with Work One at Knox High School. This is the spring one that we do open to any business, geared more towards high school seniors who may or may not be going off to college, who may or may not have a job when they're out of school, to try and place them locally if we can. It's also open to the public, so that will be out there pretty soon. Hotel, continue to work with that. The city of Knox is working on annexing Dr. James Weaver, the dentist, his property just south of First Source Bank. He has offered an investment of 3 acres of his property for the hotel project. Still working with all kinds of developers and just trying to find the right fit, trying to find the investors. And obviously it was identified as a need. We have a couple of developers very interested. Talked to a guy, so a couple of different brands. Our Cobblestone brand, the negative with that is we come up with 30% investment, then those investors have to go to the bank and get a loan for the remaining 70%. If we work with different developers, there are some out there who said if your community can come up with the initial 30% investment, then the development company, the builder, will finance the other 70%, so that the investors will not be on the hook for the other 70% of the project. So just looking at all kinds of options.
But those would be decisions ultimately made by the investment group itself.
Yes. So whoever, if we have one person or if we have 10 people that come in and make up this 30% investment, they basically will say what kind of hotel. And I will, we really need to have a management company there managing it. It can't be some guy that comes in and builds a hotel and then it just kind of falls apart because he has no idea how to do hotel management. And we're also working with Purdue Northwest, who has a hospitality program, which is maybe a good way to get folks into that business around here. So those are my updates and things that are going on. Any questions?
No.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank
Appreciate it.
We got rezoning request, I guess, Mary. On this.
All right, so at the last planning commission meeting, we had a petition to rezoned some acreage over by San Pierre for the waffles here. I got a couple maps there in the back of what you're looking at. The planning commission did approve the request. This map here shows the area that would be rezoned. Here. There's two separate parcels, but they're both connected. And then this one here is a map. This area here is the area that is currently zoned R2 that would be rezoned into ag zone ground. And then this one here I got that shows you, these are the two actual separate parcels. This blue one here is around 12 acres. It used to be an old railroad. Bed. Yeah, it would not include all of this. It would only be the area that would be right in front of this green one here. The top portion of this is already zoned ag. The bottom portion then of that parcel would continue to stay R2 in that area. One of the planning commission members, Phil Woolery with Purdue Extension, he did look into how the USDA rates that area as far as sustainability for development. It's zoned poorly with the USDA for residential development. It's rating for housing and basements is not measurable in that area. The farmland there is currently just being farmed. It's not, there's no housing on it or anything. It's just all farmland. And I'll let Larry give you any of his comments on it.
Well, I'll just extend on what Bill Woolery said. It's really good farm ground. It's poor development ground. I have 2 center pivots on it. It's all tillable. It has an open ditch. Oh, I farmed it for 50 years. I don't ever remember a home in that period ever on that property. So I'm requesting.
Where's 421 set on there here?
Yep. Like right next to that blue property, yeah.
And the double blue here, you're not rezoning that.
No, I'm not. I'm basically just rezoning the 80.
It would
Not the
just be
extension.
the property in this part, the blue right there.
Okay.
That goes out to 421 there. So only the property in front of the green one. This up here is already zoned ag. This down here would stay R2.
My only question there, I mean, if you've ever went solar, it's put like stipulations that you can't get too close to the town. You know, right against the town, and that's how we did Bass Lake also. That would be my only thing.
Yeah, that was my main concern.
I'm not against it going to ag, it's just if you decide to go solar 5 years down the road or whatever, that you can't put the solar right against the town.
Well, there is a buffer between the property, this 80 and the town.
Is there?
I mean, you got that one house should be. No, that's only a couple 100 feet from that property there. Cause I think the town. I mean, this is the square, what they years ago, you know, would have been considered the town area.
There are 2 homes in question, one due east across US 421. That's probably 350 feet from 421. And then there's a house straight south.
That one right east is for sale right now.
So of course, if it became solar, we'd follow all the preset ordinances that you're already in law.
I just feel like still with those in that ordinance, there isn't enough. Cause you're only 1/4 mile from
the center of St. Pierre, Eliza Street. That's my only concern. I mean, I raised that in the planning commission meeting, so. I ain't against zoning and ag, but I think we need to put stipulation in there, you know, it could be so many feet from west of 421. I mean, I was thinking to the edge of that woods, I think Smiley Cone's to the west of it or something, I believe.
The one map shows two lines, I think.
That'll be outrageous. Yeah, I think there's a woods. That'd be. Yeah, right here's. Yeah. I think so many feet from that.
So you're saying a stipulation besides what the county.
In that ordinance. Cause I mean, we could zone
Just
ag,
against-
but it's just,
just against the town there.
you know. Cause I just,
For future development
no,
of ag,
no, it could, well, it could be solar panels.
okay,
That would be it.
so.
Yeah, I mean, even building, we won't be against building, and we don't want the solar panels against the town.
Well, that's.
We're talking.
That's no different than what's already there, than what's built into
That's,
the ordinance.
that's too close to town. The
Well,
town's not getting any bigger, let's say that. And, you know, we gotta stand up, you know, and we represent more people than just one person, so.
Right,
And that meeting that was in Railroad Township, I went to it 2 years ago. There was more people there against solar, so I feel like we need to make sure we protect that town. You know, it's just,
What about
How it is.
special buffers to protect the town? I
and
mean, you
that's,
could request those of the solar.
cause that's, yeah,
well, we could
if
put,
there is development, that's something we could address when and if that comes along.
well, you know, there's gonna be solar because it's all right here, so.
We don't even know that.
You know,
Charlie, what? What was the regulation for Bass Lake, wasn't it?
Maybe I was just gonna ask Mary if she wanted, but
as the one they called north of 35, that was right out, that was ruled right out, you know, not doing that. Now, the one by the drive-in south
Believe it,
west,
I believe you gotta be 200 feet from the nearest residence, as it is now. Because they've redone it. So this would fall into the new ordinance.
Yeah.
which is still only 250 foot.
I think it's 200 feet from the nearest residence. Does that sound right to you, Deborah? 'Cause I know I went over with that on the phone with you.
'cause I just feel like we need to stay off 421, because I mean, you come into town, you know, if it were developed in the solar panels, yeah, you got your buffer. In that ordinance, it's a small buffer, but it's just. I mean, there ain't gonna be much here at the south end of town. I'd say 1,400 feet off the highway. Didn't have to get you by that woods. And that line would run parallel with 650 south there.
Right.
So what happens to that property?
Well, it would be zoned ag, but it just, you couldn't build solar on it, on that area.
Gentlemen, I am not an attorney. We've got one in the room, but I've worked long enough with zoning to know that you can't arbitrarily put a standard on one parcel. If that's a concern, and I get where you're coming from, you're gonna have to go back to the planning commission, I think, and establish, you know, either just a greater setback or to say within any incorporated town or established settlement, you can't be more than X feet from a solar panel. I don't think you can just say one parcel is, you know, if this were a BZA issue, they can establish conditions and commitments. I don't think the commissioners, let alone the planning commission, can do that on a parcel by parcel basis under the Indiana code. Not that I think Mr. Waffle wants to be especially litigious, but if push comes to shove, I think he'd be on pretty sound footing trying to do that.
I appreciate that.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, at least you're dealing with a modification or amendment of the original certification by the planning commission, which requires at least it being kicked back to the planning commission with written recommendations is how you'd like to see it done. That begs a further question, like Nathan brought up, whether or not how you peg that to your current solar ordinance.
Right.
You know, if it's modification of the solar ordinance that has to take place, and you have to establish that by buffer from, you know, the town. I mean, you can have that discussion, but yeah, at the very least, if two of the three of you agree there needs to be additional protections, it has to go back to the planning commission, which may beg the bigger discussion is there modification of the solar ordinance as a whole, you know, specific to, you know, distance from a town or something like that. So it sounds like at the very least, you're saying we want this amended, you know, but it may be on the planning commission then to decide, well, they can't do it on a parcel by parcel basis through like a spot rezoning like we're looking to do, or like is being asked here.
Well,
Whether,
this won't be spotted because it's more than 10 acres.
well, I'm using spot in the pejorative sense, we're spot rezoning one parcel. So. I don't know, if two of the three of you say, we don't want to allow solar on that parcel without further modification or further, you know, protections in there, then it's got to go back to the planning commission. Then I think at the planning commission level, we have to discuss what that looks like, but like Nathan suggested, it may have to be a large scale revision of the solar ordinance.
My only concern with that is that the solar ordinance was just redone this past August.
I don't know, I just feel like they're gonna end up right there on everybody's doorstep, so.
I'll make a motion to send it back to planning commission. Have some more discussion over it.
I'll second
Are you just
that.
are you just rejecting it at this point?
Or we could table it, whichever.
Well, I mean, I don't, depends on if you're looking for a rejection or an amendment, because if you're amending it, then you have to send specific amendments back to the planning. commission.
Well, an
If it's a
amendment-
full rejection,
So,
For farther setbacks on the solar and stuff by town.
okay.
You also talked about away from 421. Is that part of it too? Because there will be other landowners involved in that.
That's what we're saying, like 1,400 foot off 420.
21.
That's
But
over
that's
40
not what
miles.
we're talking
Is it?
yeah, because that's center of town to that parcel was 1,400 feet.
And then what good are the buffers that we have a chance to request?
I'm just trying to check this. I don't know if it could be an area of town. I mean, that's in the area of the town.
I think it would have to go, I think it would have to make it into your solar ordinance. I mean, it's not to say that you can't amend the ordinance.
Just looking at it right around the town, you know, it's
Yeah.
been rural more.
Well, and I mean,
This is rural.
but let's take the first impression solar for all of us, right?
Mhm.
It's impossible to be omniscient and understand all the potential problems there could be. I mean, it's gonna take a lot more time, because I don't think we can, Nathan suggested, ask for an amendment specific to that parcel without some type of change to our solar ordinance would specify, so you guys have the power to control that. If that makes sense, so. If you're looking to allow him to put solar on there just with. Further setback, it may almost be quicker just to reject it entirely. And say the discussion needs to be had to amend the solar ordinance, because otherwise you're gonna be. You're sending it back for an amendment, but we might not have the power to amend it the way you want it to. And then we're setting them 2 steps back, because then it has to come back before us again. You know, the planning commission, you know, it's just a whole thing. Did I misstep there, Nathan? Nathan's usually the guy that I call if I have a question about solar. He's dealt with it for 3 more years than I have down in.
I guess the only thing I would say is that if you expect to have the plan commission address of the buffer issue from a settlement, village, incorporated town, any like that. And unless Larry's got a contract for a solar project in his back pocket, he's not telling you about, if there's not an immediate instance of a solar developer leasing that ground, I don't know that it's necessary to deny his request right now, as long as you know that you're going to be acting to make those changes before there's a chance that construction is going to begin or permits going to be issued on that site.
Well, see, that's with the other stuff by Bass Lake, we had to rezone it first before they could even start anything,
Right.
so I just know this is how it's gonna go.
And it's not that I want to hold him up. So I mean, whatever's quicker, if we reject it or whatever,
Well, I know this.
And if you want it off 421, that property doesn't even go along 421 at the town. It stops before the town, so. That's of no significance.
Well, I drive by it enough, I see where, you know, it's right there, it's, everybody's gonna see that, so.
Well, they're gonna.
Just trying to push it off the highway, but This, especially around that little town of St. Peter.
I'm just saying, 421, our property does not go to the town. So if you take it off of 421, that doesn't affect the town of Sanpere, except you see it a little closer to the road.
So you want to send it back to the,
Yeah, whatever's quicker. Like I say, I'm not wanting to hold Larry up, but I think it needs to be looked at,
yeah.
being right here in town.
So the solar projects are being developed right now around there.
Right.
So we hold this up and.
Is there a recorded lease recorded for solar on this parcel? Because that could be a problem for us.
It has to be changed to ag before
But there is a recorded solar lease for that parcel.
there is,
Okay,
but it needs to be.
Because that means-
a change of
An
zoning.
option, not a,
okay. So that means we've got constructive notice of a lease. Which changes the dynamic a little bit.
That's why-
The hypothetical Nathan presented was one where we didn't know what was happening, because what we're doing now is knowing that there's a lease in place, we're constructive notice of an option or a leasing, I don't need a lot.
An option to lease.
Changes it, because then because then you have government. I don't know how to work this in a way that's not overly legally complicated, because then you have government intertwining itself in a private contractual deal. We have constructive notice of that lease, which brings in constitutional concerns. Without going into the nitty gritty of how that works, it's different.
I mean, it's gotta be rezoned, so it's gotta go through us, so.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you're not tied to, hey, we're forced to, rezone this because we know that there's a lease. It's just, it changes it a little bit. If we're trying to negotiate terms in a private contract, if we're looking to amend the ordinance.
And it was advertised to change to 14, was it 14 individuals that we sent this to, and we had one opposition, and that was the piece of property being sold across the road.
Well, get advertised in the newspaper and then all these individuals around the property.
Which some of those are.
Some of them were a little, yeah.
Don't want to ask you to disclose confidential terms, Larry, but I mean. If you can tell me, I mean, is there an opt-out if it's not rezoned? I mean, do you guys have face ramifications from that? You don't have to tell me, but
I don't understand the question.
so your option is contingent upon the rezoning, right? Their
Yes,
option is
yes.
contingent upon this being rezoned. So if it's not rezoned. I mean, you don't have to answer this question. What would happen? The lease terminates, the option terminates.
I don't want to go there. I don't know.
Therein lays our
I
problem.
mean, there's legalities. I mean, we're owners of the property. It's farm ground. I request that it be changed to farm ground, but
No, I'm not anti doing it. I mean. I've not represented Larry, I've represented his son's out thing, doesn't present a conflict, so I'm not against them doing this. It's just, from your guys' perspective, we have to know what position we sit relative to if we choose to rezone or not rezone this thing.
And that's the decision. Do we approve or deny that what's sitting in front of us? Adding on more stipulations is a separate process that opens up. As I understand it, if we deny it, but it's may still be available if we approve the result.
There's no recourse on you for denial, could be recourse on him, I don't know.
I just wish we'd get maybe something from Next Era that would say, hey, we're not gonna, do it in this area, but, besides our ordinance. I mean, if they wanna work with whoever, they ought to, so.
why could there be a request put in the next era to double or triple the types of buffers used, the trees?
On that piece of
Between that
property.
piece and,
But that would have to come from you. That would have to come from you, otherwise we're intertwining ourselves in that private contract. So I think you have, 60 days to act on this once it's certified, if memory serves me, by the planning commission. I don't know, would you guys be happy? Would you be able to provide us with something in writing from next year? Because again, you guys are the contracting parties here to talk about what the buffers would be to shield the town. If you can bring that before them, maybe they can consider that at not, maybe it's not their next meeting in 2 weeks, but the meeting in April. Maybe they'd be more comfortable with that assurance. It's just, we're on strange territory here. 'cause we've
Well,
got
I think go
signed
back to
action.
next era, they have the option on that and talk with them. Obviously. I just feel like any ground that is not used for the solar panels is wasted ground.
Just like-
It's wasted ground.
Charlie, I
Yeah,
just make
Larry.
a comment, and I've dealt with several of these solar companies, and my experience has been, they wish to be very accommodating in that manner, such as putting in extra buffers where people would require that. I think NextEra would more than likely respond to that quite rapidly.
I'd like to hear from, her, you know,
Because this is the sort of thing, you know, you want more of a buffer, more of a setback. You know, that's the sort of thing I would think, discuss in, you know, if the need arises for another ERA. You know,
We
that's how
can
we
do that, we can talk.
keep into things. With the Mammoth project. Shouldn't hold us up from, you know, making a yes or no decision on this right now. You know, and we still have plenty of room in the process. You know, when we get to the permitting process is when I think is the more appropriate spot to deal with how to, you know, the nitty gritty on how things are going to be developed, if they're going to be developed.
well, I
the way you
think they already have the permits for that area, I think, next era. Don't they?
Well, I wouldn't think that
I mean,
those
that
permits
goes
cover
for-
this particular piece of property.
They already have their, whatever properties are included in their phase one.
Right,
So this one probably won't be.
this isn't part of phase one.
I don't know, I'd like to get the facts of
The
it, see if
phase
they
one is
can
Starke County.
do that. You
The
know,
phase
for
one is
what we request
Jasper County.
to have a bigger buffer on that parcel. You know, it's, if they want to work with everybody, that's just how it's gonna go forward.
Well, if Donnie will rescind his motion, I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Three times.
Okay. Of the payroll claims, the amount of $296,803.11.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is a motion to approve the vendor claims in the amount of $302,082.74.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion to approve the minutes for Monday, March 6th, 2023.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Then we had another CBC board appointment, Jack Rosa was interested in serving on that board.
We're gonna hold up and see if we get an innkeeper, we're gonna just go with it.
There's no any stipulation on this like we did, but I don't want a problem like we had with the, when we tried to put a law enforcement officer on the alcohol board. There's no restriction like that on CDC, is there? Okay.
You should diligently look.
Yeah.
Because the keeper is required to be on the board. But if you can't
And this
find
is,
it-
and this is the last open spot. Okay.
I have a question. Does an innkeeper, would somebody who has a Vrbo or an Airbnb at Bass Lake that they rent out? be
So long as,
considered a-
as I understand it, so long as they're required to collect the innkeeper's tax. That would be enough, right? And those are supposed to collect that tax. Or am I wrong? Am I on the wrong foot on this or what?
The rentals have to be under 30 days for them to charge the tax. If it's anything over 30 days, they do not charge the tax.
Okay.
It's always after. We need to straighten these curveballs.
Right.
Could be worse, you could have Kevin Scott.
Well,
You're not wrong.
I'm just trying to get the most out of that contract recently. Oh, since he's taking so long, let's just table it. That's fine. Make a motion to table the appointment.
Yep.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Did have. Bill Crace sits on the river board.
Yes, yeah, and they were, he had called me as well, but when he called me, he was asking if there was an unused license available.
Yeah.
There isn't.
Right.
So I have no problem if that particular board has the desire to expend it, I don't even know what kind of budget they have. I haven't looked at it to see if they have a budget.
I can't remember what it is, but it's fine.
But if they want to use funds in their budget to purchase one through us with our vendor, I don't have any problems.
Not an editor's license though, correct?
No, I don't know. He was just looking for because he just wants to use it as a map making tool. So he wouldn't need to have read write access, you just need read only.
Read only.
Yeah, if they can pay for it through us.
Because, yeah, no, the only ones that have the capability to edit that are people in our offices.
Yeah.
No, I mean. And that should just, is that just your office?
For
Or,
most of the stuff, yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't see,
Like planning commission has ability to edit addresses.
right,
But,
yeah. Yeah, and we don't need anyone beyond who's already got those rights in the software to be making changes. That would be a mess.
I think read only licenses like 2,500. It's around that.
And then they check, like, sure.
Yeah.
Stuff on the river, so.
You wanna make that motion?
Is that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I got one, I see Dave's still here, and I'd still like for the council to look at that part-time pay. Tweak it a little bit or move around a little. I still think the two prices are good, you know, to make sure they're gonna come back or whatever. But I think we need to do something with it. It's just, everybody's having trouble getting part-time people.
Yeah, well, one of the things I wanted to talk to the commissioners about, and I'm gonna bring this up to the council tonight, is kind of just looking at the whole thing. I was approached about this, then also was part of a kind of a large group on one side of a Zoom and me on the other. Talking about what we're paying within the sheriff's department. And so one of the things I'm gonna talk about in our council meeting tonight is possibly looking at spending a couple thousand with Baker Tilly to do a study. Again, I personally don't think that the community is gonna be crazy about raising a tax. Now, there used to be what was called the LOIT, the local option income tax, and communities across Indiana would use that to pay for fire, EMS, law enforcement, dispatch, things like that. So we're falling short on dispatch dollars anyways. We talked to, Don and I actually talked to Jim Pressel and Kendall Colt just about, the fact that that's so short, and they haven't revised that in a long time. I feel that the commissioners are not interested in privatizing the EMS. I don't want to be the one that pushes that only. I feel like we should, but if you guys are reticent enough to, feel like there's risk there, if we're going to keep EMS, it's not going to stay floating the way we do it either. I think there's two things. We're going to have to pay better, but we're also going to have to get better at billing too. I don't know that those happen at the same time. I don't even know how we get in, how we get that going, but for sure we're not capturing money like we should. And so one possibility is that, and I don't want to get hung on this, especially when it goes, out into the public. One option is that we consider what's called, it used to be LOIT, now they just call it LIT, local income tax. And most counties have a LIT. So a lot of the times I like to compare us to Jasper County. Jasper County has a 2.9% LIT right now. And so they decided to, they didn't privatize the hospital though. They privatized their EMS at one point. It wasn't working well, so they brought it back to the county, and the way they were able to afford it is they raised their lit tax. They also paid for a lot of their costs for that new jail they built, and also the money that they're paying their deputies is also, it helps embellish all of that. So as one possibility, as a proposal, talked to Rachel about this already. That's one of the things we could look at, and then possibly if we can move some of that out, or looking at other creative ways. I don't know, maybe solar money, but I mean, but in this case, if we could, pay more, in some of those areas that have to do with public safety, then it might open up the other channels for the other departments. Because for me, the concern I still have is, I agree, Lori's, for example, the treasurer's department, part-time person handles a lot of cash. They usually have to have some skill in bookkeeping and things like that. In the past, we turned Bernadette down for a raise for her part-time person. So, I mean, it's kind of a cascade effect, and then we had this meeting the other day with the sheriff's department, and there were some other council president, and they were very much in favor for the deputies making more money. But my concern is, and just being on longer, is that once you start giving one a raise, everybody wants a raise because everybody's unpaid. And me personally, being an employee of the county for the last 13 years, I will always advocate for that. I mean, I had to give an apology to Rachel. We've got somebody trying to snipe her for double as much money. She knows I'll kill her if she tries to do that. But I mean, everybody's underpaid in the county. I mean, the council's underpaid. I mean, I've taken a lot of heat for that. I mean, we were way less than the other council, and I feel guilty now, more towards the end of my council career, that I didn't help the other council by driving that more. I just, always thought, like more of a volunteer thing, but it's not fair to try to put that on everybody. So we're going to look at it. And I think we need to look at all of them. We need to look at all the part-time positions, maybe even some kind of restructuring too. Like, maybe there's an opportunity like a clerk type person. Maybe there's a clerk, accounting clerk or something, like something that puts extra weight on that, to afford, a better pay, but then increase the range. Because the thing that I brought up in the meeting that we had was that, like, for example, let's go back to the deputies, for example. I'm not, the problem is that we've got neighboring areas that are paying 60 and 70,000 for road officers. Okay, and so, but for me personally, I'm not interested in taking somebody out of the jail that has no experience. You know, anything else, we always farm out of our jail, and then boom, putting them into a high paid position, it affects the pension, you know, they don't have any experience, you know, enough kind of experience and things like that. I mean, I think that it needs to be like revamped. Because let's say, for example, you get a young officer that applies though, but they have an associate's degree in criminal justice or, you know, criminal law, something like that. That should carry some extra weight. They should maybe make some more money, but, you know, just, you know, Joe Blow off the street, you know, coming over from working at Menards, applying at the sheriff's department, there needs to be still a low end on that kind of a scale. And I think the part-time would be, you know, the same kind of thing. You might get somebody that has no experience, but you can train them and you can graduate them into that better pay. So I think there's an opportunity for us to look at all of it, but it's gonna take a lot more funding than just, you know, a little bit. I think, you know, if we want to employ people, I mean, I've been fighting it too long and I've had a lot of people, everybody hated me on the call the other day, except for me. You know, and so I hate to always sound like Mr. Conservative, and it's not that, you know what I'm saying? It's just in government, you know, you make a decision to work for government for a certain reason, you know what I mean? And you know, coming into it, it just doesn't pay what the rest of the industry is. The problem is we can't compete with it. People just leave. So, I mean, how do we get in this day? So,
Yeah, we can't stay competitive with industry, but we gotta stay competitive with other governments.
yeah.
Makes you feel better. You're still doing better than Pulaski County is.
That makes you feel better.
I've been doing this all.
We're gonna be actually starting that whole structure tonight.
It's the same meaning. I'll be trying. That's all I got.
We can talk about it next meeting, but to answer your question right now, it's yes. That you keep the tax, just to be an extra few minutes, I know, so.
That's all right.
Rachel, you want to? Anyone else have anything for us? Motion to adjourn.
We'll move.
Sorry.
All right.
We're gonna stay around. We're gonna stay.